Hey guys, what's going on? So in the video today, I'm going to be discussing a very controversial subject. And that subject is comparing Truman Boots Coach Rambler to Truman Boots Java Waxed Flesh. Now I know that Truman's Java Waxed Flesh is one of the most popular leathers that they run. And it's true, like people love this leather, it's an iconic leather by this point. But I kind of want to highlight the differences between the two leathers. I kind of wanted to get them, you know, both under the camera, both side by side, and really compare both of the leathers. Because I think I mentioned it in my last video about my Coach Ramblers, that the reason I didn't get Coach Rambler like years earlier is because I had the Java Waxed Flesh. Now, look at these two boots. They couldn't be any more different from one another, obviously. But my school of thought at the time, though ridiculous, was the Java Waxed Flesh was a brown boot with a cap toe on a commando sole, and that made it, in my mind, the same as the Coach Rambler on the commando sole with the cap toe, because they're both brown. After my evolution of going through these different leathers and different boots for so long, I can tell you how ridiculous that sounds. To compare the two, so they are constructed slightly differently. The Java Waxed Flesh here is constructed on Truman's stitch down welt. The Coach Rambler is constructed using the Goodyear welt. Now, I know that I am in the minority when I say I actually prefer the Goodyear welt. I think it's a cleaner look. I think it looks better in my opinion. A lot of guys like the stitch down welt construction. They think it looks better, and it's just an opinion thing, but really I find the Goodyear welt more attractive. Additionally, the Java Waxed Flesh, it has the standard antique brass eyelets, whereas the Coach Rambler here has the polished brass eyelets. It gives it a little bit more of a pop. I am a huge fan of polished brass eyelets. Furthermore, the tongues are different. So on the Java Waxed Flesh, this is actually a reddish leather, and it's cow shoulder, whereas the Coach Ramblers, they have a more of a chocolate brown tongue. So the tongues are different. Okay, so the Java Waxed Flesh is obviously more of a dark chocolate brown, whereas Coach Rambler, it's more of an orange. It's got a lot, but it has a lot more than that going on. It's not just orange, it has like a very nice marbled appearance. And the marbled leather, that's something that I've been into a lot recently. With the Horween's different marbled shell cordovans, those are just some of the most interesting leathers to look at. I've seen some of the horse rump leathers released recently, also with a lot of incredible marbling. Yeah, this Rambler just has so much going on. Like, you can't just say, oh, it's an orange boot, oh, it's a brown boot, oh, it's a tan boot. No, it's more than that. For example, on this side here, on the Coach, it almost has some purples by my eye. It's got such a depth, such a range, and it's also got just a ton of character, ton of veins, ton of abrasions, like natural abrasions from the animal just during its lifetime. Just incredible. For example, with the Java Waxed Flesh, yeah, the surface is quite interesting, but to be honest, once you break them in, it's kind of like, it kind of becomes sort of just a rough out. Yeah, it's smooth at first, and then it gets roughed up, and then it's fuzzy. It's gonna expose its texture, and that's cool, but the texture sort of stops there. Once the wax is off, it's like, okay, evolution is more or less done. With the Rambler, on the other hand, it's like, so to look at the surface, there's obviously tons happening with it, but then as time goes on, as you continue to break it in, I don't think the evolution on these, the patina evolution, will ever stop. I think it will continue to patina in an interesting way beyond the first month, beyond the first year, beyond the first 5 years, beyond the first 10 years you wear these things. I have a suspicion, and it's only my suspicion at this point because we're not there yet, but in 10 years these are going to look a lot different, whereas in 10 years these are kind of more or less going to look the same. Like, yeah, they might have some more rough out exposed, but that's going to be it. Whereas the Rambler, oh my god, it's like there's endless depth, endless dimension. Like, I kind of look at the Waxed Flesh as sort of a unidimensional patina process, whereas this is more of a three-dimensional patina evolution that it has waiting for it with the Rambler leathers. So actually, I spoke to my friend JD about this, and he has a lot of useful insights when it comes to comparing Java Waxed Flesh to Rambler leather. So he says that out of the box, Waxed Flesh is very glossy, heavily coated with a waxy finish. Yes, I agree. When you first get Waxed Flesh, it is shinier than you would expect. It's very smooth to the touch. It appears like it would be rough, but it's not. When you feel it and you touch it, that Waxed Flesh, when it's brand new, it's very smooth, almost like a Chrome XL. Like if you closed your eyes and ran your fingers across it, you would think it was a Chrome XL. JD says that on the other hand, Rambler already has the character fresh out of the box. So that's a great point that he made. The second point that he made was that there's a difference between patina potential and patina process. So he says some leathers, like waxed flesh, have the potential to look great with prolonged wear, but that process is finite. Other leathers look great from the start, but its character continues to evolve throughout the process. As far as waxed flesh goes, the process pretty much ends when the wax is gone, as eventually you just end up with a pretty standard rough out. So he says to care for these leathers, if your waxed flesh is new, you can condition it with boot wax. But once the rough out is exposed, he recommends to treat it with a spray protector. And for Rambler, you can use boot wax to continue to treat it and evolve its patina process. So yeah, very good points there. He and I actually see pretty much eye to eye on this. He had some additional insights that I just wanted to share here in the video. Before I released it, I kind of wanted to reach out to him and some of my other friends and just see what they had to say, because my brain is going in a direction. When you talk to like-minded folks, you can get them to extrapolate and you could get them to add points that you wouldn't have otherwise thought of. So that's why I like to bounce ideas off my friends. And yeah, I have to say, like, this year I've gotten a lot of different Ramblers and a lot of different Mohawks from Truman, and I'm disappointed in myself that I didn't hop on them sooner because they are so amazing. First off, so Horween makes this waxed flesh, and I love the waxed flesh. In fact, I'm still eyeing Truman's chestnut waxed flesh that they have going on right now. In fact, I think I like the chestnut a little bit better than the Java. It's more of a reddish mid-range brown compared to this darker brown, and to me I think is just so cool. So I love waxed flesh, don't get me wrong, but this Rambler and the Mohawk leathers from Charles F. Stead Tannery in Leeds, UK, it's like they purposefully made the leather to look rough and rugged and broken in from day one, but as you break them in, they really start to tell a story, if that makes any sense. I'm really blown away by how much I love my Coach Ramblers. It's not just a matter of you wear the boots. Like, yeah, you wear your boots, but when you really love your boots, you don't wear your boots, you live in your boots. And you learn from the leathers. Your boots teach you things as you wear them. You know, that's something that doesn't get talked about enough, in my opinion. It's like, I've had these things for about 4 years, I think. And yeah, I've learned a ton from them. I've worked in them, I've dropped tree logs on them. This is such a rugged, durable leather, and I've learned so much from it. You know, I haven't had these as long, but when you live in your boots and you really appreciate them, they teach you something. And it's something that you can only learn by having them yourself, really. And that's kind of the point of my channel, is just to get my thoughts out as I wear this stuff. You know, because my opinion is changing constantly. My opinion is never fixed on leather. It's constantly evolving. My preferences, my tastes, constantly evolving. And in fact, so I love my Coach, but I also got a pair of Gobi Mohawks from Truman. I'll be doing a review on those. Oh my God, talk about, that's a pair of boots that the pictures don't do it justice, and you don't realize even how much you're gonna like them until you get them and you put them on. It's one of those things for me. It's like, it's easy to see a picture of Java waxed flesh and fall in love with it. Absolutely. It's another thing to get this Rambler, because the pictures don't do it justice, but once you get the leather and you start wearing it, it's like things start to click beyond just your initial impression and your initial opinion on the leather. So let me get into Truman's description of these leathers, because I always think that's useful. On Truman's website, it says Rambler leather is from Charles F. Stead Tannery in Leeds, UK. It features natural textures of the flesh side of the hide. Yes. Finished with a wax blend for a unique natural aesthetic featuring a depth of color and rugged texture. Yeah, I mean, that sums it up right there. What I also find interesting are the reviews. And there's one review on here from Mark Leone from November 2019, and he says his review is really good. His review sums up my thoughts on it. So he says that these Coach Ramblers are unequivocally the most beautiful things I've ever worn on my feet in the 46 years I've been alive. Quite possibly one of the most beautiful things I've ever purchased, my wife's engagement ring included. I agree, like, there's just something so stunning, so popping about this leather, because it's not just the leather itself, it's the tone of it, it's the mid-range brown tone that it has going on that really makes it look different in every different light that you're in. So for example, the Java Wax Flesh, it's just kind of a dark chocolate brown, kind of looks the same in every light. Yeah, in the dark it looks almost black, but then when you get it outside it's still very dark, and it just kind of keeps the same aesthetic in different lights. But this really shows different things depending on what light you're standing in. So anyways, let me get back to this review. So it says, when you open the box, a fragrance of gorgeous animal hide and craftsmanship rises and fills your senses with a reassurance that you've invested in something heirloom, something boutique, something singularly stunning. The sizing is on point. They hug your feet with an embrace that only a leather of this quality can. They are the crown jewel of anything I am wearing on my body on any given day, from my head on down, and they stop pedestrian and vehicular traffic. Positively stunning boots, totally dangerous to my bank account and rapport with the wife, as I want no other footwear in my closet except Truman Footwear. Thanks guys, these are amazing and worth the wait. That strikes a chord with me because it brings me back to something else, which is I had one comment on my Instagram, and I featured this in my Coach Rambler review, that the guy said that, you know, Java Wax Flesh is Truman's flagship boot, but he will preach these every single day, the Coach Ramblers. And that's just something that I resonate so much with. I'll read a little bit about the waxed flesh here. So it says, the waxed flesh is a rough out leather with a waxed finish applied during the tanning process, making it extremely durable to most elements with water resistant characteristics. Yes, that's true. Like, the water just beads off of this stuff. Don't think of it like a normal rough out. Like, the water does not absorb. The water totally, it hits this and it just beads off. It's meant to age over time with a patina that portrays the rough out side of the hide. The wax will fade over time with heavy, constant wear. Obviously, it's got a lot of good reviews on the Java Wax Flesh as well. I've been so impressed with the Rambler that so far this year, and I still have reviews to do on these. I've purchased the Black Burgundy Rambler from Truman, the Squirrel Rambler. I also just got the Stone Ramblers. I wore them for the first time yesterday. Blown away by those. By the way, the whole point of this video is to tell you, don't let the Java Wax Flesh prevent you from getting the Coach Rambler. Well, I'm going to do another video explaining why you shouldn't let the Coach Rambler prevent you from getting the Stone Ramblers, because in my mind, it did. I had the Coach and I looked at the Stone and I'm like, yeah, those Stone Ramblers are cool, but I have the Coach and it's similar. No, it's not. That's not true at all. They're completely different. So I'm going to be doing a comparison of those as well here soon. That leads me into my final point that I wanted to make, and I talk about this with a lot of my friends like Adam Grimm and JD, Juan Pinselman, Lauren, Inked Boots. We had this discussion recently because, you know, we get together and we talk boots a lot. This point was made recently, which is like, we're done questioning whether or not to get a leather based so much on the color. For example, if you have a pair of brown boots in brown waxed flesh and you see that same makeup pop up in brown suede, should the waxed flesh preclude you from getting the same makeup in brown suede? No. Because different leathers have different characteristics, and just because they're the same color, and just because they're the same design, and just because they have the same sole, and maybe the same eyelets, and maybe the same tongue, does not mean that they're the same boot by any stretch. So for example, you know, having the same makeup in, say, a navy shell versus a chrome XL, yes, they might look the same when they're brand new. They're going to age completely differently. Shell cordovan ages completely differently than chrome XL does, and in a couple years they'll be completely different boots, because ultimately these leathers are so fascinating. They all exhibit different characteristics, and you don't know until you try them. Like I said, this year my big discovery was the Rambler leathers. I find that they're just so interesting. In fact, they might be my favorite leather right now. Yeah, the whole point of this video is to say, if you really like a boot, look at the boot for what it is and then decide whether or not you love it, and forget about the overlap in terms of color, because different boots in different leathers really make it a different boot. It's not so much the appearance. The leather itself makes it a different boot, is kind of what I'm getting at. So, okay, so in closing, I just want to say that I want to be clear about my message here. I'm not trying to take away from the magnificence of waxed flesh, but rather I'm trying to emphasize the magnificence of Rambler. So by no means would I recommend skipping the waxed flesh. Quite the opposite. I think it's one of the best leathers you can start with. You can think of it in terms of a tiered system or graduating from one level to another. Obviously, you're free to experience leather in any order that you please. I liken it to sort of drinking wine. When you're going to taste test different wines, you start with the lightest white wines and you gradually progress into the richer, fuller, bolder red wines. Between the two, I would say there is no clear winner. Instead, I would put it like this. The waxed flesh is probably better for someone who's just getting into boots, and the Rambler is probably better for the more advanced collector. Maybe the best method would be to start with one of the basic leathers like Chrome XL, then move into waxed flesh, and then eventually once you've experienced those more ubiquitous leathers, I would say maybe then you move into the Ramblers and have an even more enhanced experience there. It's a matter of progression, and I think there's an artful path that you can follow to best enjoy these different leathers. That's just my 2 cents. You guys can do what you want. Anyways, I'm done rambling for now, no pun intended. Please let me know what you guys think of the video. What did you think of the comparison? Do you want to see more of these in the future? Because I do plan to do more. Like I said, I plan to compare the different Rambler leathers to one another, just different boots in my collection that I think would be interesting to compare. So please let me know what you think in the comments. I am on Instagram. You can follow me there. My username is AeroSurferLV. If you have any questions, that's probably the best place to hit me up on, is on Instagram. And anyways, guys, thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you all in my next video.